facilitate a conversation. We're not here necessarily because we're experts or we necessarily have anything to say about this that is more valid than anything that any of you might have to say. I think what we share in common is a testimony of the gospel and a commitment to compassion and understanding and around being LGBT and Mormon. So that's just why we're here. So my name is John Gustav Rathall. I'm the president of Affirmation. I am in a same-sex relationship. We're now legally married since 2008, but we've been together for. It was a joyous event. But we've been together for more than 23 years. And I'm excommunicated. I'm also active in my ward in Minneapolis, Minnesota. I have a testimony of the gospel. I have a testimony of the church. I try to live the principles of the gospel. I attend church. I love my word. And when I heard the news about the policy, it was a blow. It was really hard. And for about 24 hours, I felt pretty rotten. And the next day, I prayed about this. I tried to get some guidance about it. And all I can say is that I felt a sense of peace. And I felt the Lord telling me that He was with me, He was with my husband, and that we would be taken care of. And I felt a sense of peace about it. So that's...
I am Laura Skye-Zulin. I am a lifelong member of the church, who is also gay, and who is also in a mixed orientation marriage. So my husband and I have been married for 12 years. And for most of my life, because I took the very kind of traditional route, I stayed in the closet. But about 3 years ago, I felt very impressed to come out, literally in church, over the pulpit and break that taboo. That led to some interesting experiences and some mixed reactions, some of which were very healing, and some of which inflicted a lot of pain. I had a chance to recover from some of that pain. I fortuitously, my husband he researches religious conflict, and so we went to Ethiopia for 18 months, where there is no LDS church, and that was a blessing at that time. You can laugh. You can laugh about it now. But to just sit with my family and to just talk about the basic love of Christ. That was a huge blessing, just to connect with those simple truths. Since coming back and returning to church, it's been a bit of a challenge, right? We think that we're all good and sewn up and healed, and then we go back, and sometimes it's hard, it takes time. And then the policy came. I've been hanging out most of my life. I did not know any other gay Mormons. I knew there probably had to be some, but I didn't know them. But since I've come out, one of the hugest blessings is knowing so many of you, and learning people's stories and connecting, and everybody having faces, and it's all very real. And so when policy came, even though it does not affect me as far as like my life choices, my heart broke very sincerely. And then I began to pray, okay, Heavenly Father, what do I do now? And my answer came in a fasting testimony meeting, a few weeks after I'd sat in a lot of grief, a lot of heartache, and a lot of depression, really, about continuing going to church. And the just really distinct impression that came to me at that time was I needed to integrate everything that I had learned about the value of LGBT people and their relationships. I needed to integrate that into my testimony. And testimony, as we all know, is something that we share. It is best understood when we bury. And so that is my sense of, I guess, knowing or understanding what my Heavenly Father would have me do at this time. So I'm so grateful to be here with John, with Ron, and with all of you. No matter what life path we are on, our lives have value, our relationships have value, and even when we don't feel like we belong, we belong to each other here. And I say that in the name of Jesus Christ. Amen. Amen.
I'm Ron Rains. I'm a convert to the church of over 40 years, and I'm active in my board in Eugene, Oregon. I am married to Sue. I'll let her introduce herself. We've been married for 35 years, and I'm looking for a relationship, and I love her.
My name's Sue Rains. We're also the proud parents of 3 daughters, and we also have 4 grandchildren. So that's our claim to fame. His other claim to fame is that he makes ice cream. So he's useful. How has the policy affected us? We are both still active in the church. It's taken me a long time to get used to the fact that I was married to a gay husband, and I felt very angry and looked for whatever ways I could use to escape. I'm really glad I didn't. I'm glad I stayed. It hasn't all been easy, but it's been wonderful. And we have a really pretty happy, amazing life together. So how's the policy affected me? I felt a little bit about where's my community now. Everybody pretty much at church knows that Ron is gay, so they all feel very sorry for me, which is one of the things that happens. But right now, as the policy comes out, there's a lot of empathy and love for both of us. So that's where we kind of are together. And I love him too.
So what we'd like to do now is, it's very important to us to get a sense of what the temperature in the room is, see where you all are. We want this to be a discussion. We want this to be an opportunity for you to ask questions of each other, to share stories briefly. So what we'd like to do is just go around the room and have you share 3 things: your name, where you are, where you live, and share 3 words that capture your feelings right now in relation to the policy and how it affects your relationship with the church. Just 3 words. And let me say too, if you want to pass, just say pass. You don't have to share if you don't want to.
Robert Davis, we live near Pasadena. 3 words. Sad, confused, hopeful.
Ann Davis, Pasadena, angry, confused, faithful.
Ron Scout, Pocatello, Idaho. Shocked, dismayed, and wondering.
Bill Evans, Salt Lake City, more or less. Hopeful, waiting, optimistic.
Judy Eggleston, Turtle, California. Shock, disbelief, great hope. Amy O'Keefe, San Diego. Trying so hard to make this year. Betrayed, hurt, and peaceful.
I'm Amanda Farney from Rockmore in San Diego.
Okay.
My name is Celeste Carolyn. I'm from Seattle, Washington, and I would say grief, mistrust, and to some degree abused.
Kathleen Madgley, Seattle, Washington. Hurt, hopeful, and guided.
Lindsay Wilson, San Diego. Shocked, confused, and hopeful. Mindy Barnes, down sad, confused, cautiously optimistic.
Brad Barham, San Diego, it's a misguided, misled, and misrepresented. I'm Fred Carter, Los Angeles. Angry, listen, and learn.
I'm Sarah Burlingame from Cheyenne, Wyoming. I would say exclusion policy dismantled.
Kurt Bowers, Washington, D.C., and I'll pass on the three.
Renee Walters, I'm from Walnut Creek, California. And I'm just disappointed.
Justin Jones, Las Vegas. Sorry, I'm out.
Megan Jones. Angry, embarrassed, and sad.
Pilar Fish from Las Vegas. Very sad, angry, and still sad.
Wendy Montgomery, Chandler, Arizona.
Outraged, betrayed,
And turmoil.
Wendy Maroney from Gilbert, Arizona. Disbelief, shock, guided.
Chris Maroney from Gilbert, Arizona. Yeah, 4 words. That's not my God.
Tom Oviatt, Moraga, California, and I'm pissed off.
Diane Oviatt from Moraga, California. You stole my word. Okay, I am heartbroken, pissed off, and betrayed.
I'm Tom McAfee, I'm from Las Vegas, Nevada, and I was dismayed, deeply frustrated, and more thought about it, more cautiously hopeful.
I'm Amy McAfee from Las Vegas. Shocked, confused, and frustrated.
Justin McAfee from Las Vegas, and I think I'm just disappointed, but assured.
I'm Bishop Thonak. I'm open. Consistency. And we need to learn.
Tricia Thornock, and I'm from Diamond Bar, California, his wife. And well, I think I'll pass because I don't really know what it means in my life yet.
I'm Tom Christopherson from California and Utah. I would say dismayed, hopeful, waiting.
Thank you, everybody. I gotta say, when we did this the first session, like half of us were crying by the time we had gone around the room, and there was so much heartbreak expressed. this group, I'm hearing a lot more expression of hope than we heard in the first group, I think, although it's interesting to me to hear this sort of simultaneous expressions of heartbreak or hope. I'm hearing a lot of anger too, and we certainly heard a lot of that in the first session. In my capacity as president of Affirmation, I have, just about every conversation I've had since November 5th, I've been, talking about this. I have begun to make it a habit of every time I talk to somebody new about this, sort of ask them, how are you doing? How is this for you? And I'm seeing all across the board, I'm seeing people who are hopeful, people who feel resolute, who feel that this is an opportunity for love. Also people feeling really discouraged, and a lot of people feeling excluded, feeling under attack. One of the expressions that I've heard a lot is people feeling like their church has declared war on them. That's one analogy that I've heard. So I didn't feel I could ask this question in the first group, but I kind of feel like I want to ask it here because the temperature in the room is a little bit different. I think I can ask this question. My question would be that those of you who do feel some hope, who do feel some optimism, where does that come from for you? Yeah.
I haven't been in church for quite a while, but I've always held on to part of it. For me, I went on a mission, and I have somewhat of a testimony. I don't know, some things I'm shaky, but for me, I thought about actually withdrawing my membership of the church after the policy came out, and just saying, I'm not going to associate myself with this. But I decided to pray, and for me, the answer that came to me was, I'm God, I got this. So it seems to me that the sign of hope is that in the past the church has made improvements. There was a priesthood exclusion policy that they changed. So for me, I have faith in God, and I think God, this may be a test for people in the church, but my hope is that God, He knows what He's doing, or they or she, whatever. Yeah,
thank you.
I'm fifth generation LDS. Ancestors crossed the plains in the 1850s, died on the plains. Leaving the church would have tremendous cost to me. It's really not much at all. Would destroy my family. I've got to find a way to make this work. I'm in therapy, and it's helped tremendously. My therapist is LDS. And I've come to understand that so much of my anger is about me and not the policy. If the Baptist church or Orthodox Jewish or Baha'i or anybody came out with this kind of policy, it wouldn't have hit me so hard. But because I gave my own authority to the brethren and saw them as a parental figure, that it's bringing up issues of my own betrayal as a child. And understanding that dynamic for me is really helpful. Another thing is my personal relationship with the Savior has grown so much because I've had to struggle. I'm no longer reliant upon Salt Lake for my source of truth. My source of truth is my relationship with God, and that helps.
Tom.
The Book of Mormon is very important to me, and when the Savior says all are alike under God, I believe him. So I hope.
Yeah.
For me, I think we're better than we were in the past.
similar to what Minnie said, I think because of this last night I was talking to you, is, had this happened 30, 40, maybe 20 years ago, I don't think you would have had even close to the revolt or the, it really was a revolt. By so many, we're talking, my mom was on the General Glory, same thing, I'm the checklist, AP guy. But what that reveals to me is amazing change at the heart of the church. That rather than a bunch of sheep followers who don't have the direct connection to God, there's quite a few now. He said, like actually stuck in testimony with testimonies who aren't in conflict with it because they're disobedient to leadership. They're in conflict with it because it's out of alignment with truth and the one to take a stand. The fact that they are tells me there is growth within the depth of the church for straights, for gays, that gives me hope that God does have it. That I don't think he's not behind policy, but he can take it to create change.
I'll just observe and then you too, but I have heard a lot of people talk about how this has really driven them to prayer and has driven them to go to God, and that to me is kind of hopeful.
Trying to find the silver lining in this policy, I have seen very conservative Orthodox believing the people that were asleep to this issue and now open up to this. And that gives me hope.
Along very similar lines, I went to an old friend and colleague of mine. He's a very committed, active member of the church and very conservative, much more conservative in every way than I am. He said, "Tom, how you doing?" I said, "I'm a little disappointed in church." He said, "I know what you mean." And he said, "Let's just remember that policy, not doctrine, and it'll change." It's not. If this individual is saying this, there's got to be a whole lot more out there saying the same thing. So, agree.
I've got a couple things. I've got a 14-year-old transgender son. And I'm glad this is happening now instead of when he's 20. You know, at this point, Lex doesn't, the policy, he hears about it on Transactive LDS's site and stuff like that, and I engage him a little bit. He has better things to worry about right now than how this is going to affect him as far as church goes, because for him, in a way, it just doesn't right now, but it will be incredibly impactful later in his life, and I'm glad we're getting it done and over with, in a way. The other thing, I've been a lifelong member. My grandpa was a sealer in the temple, and I've got Mormon battalion blood in me, and the way I look at it is I know enough of church history to look back, and there are a couple things that are somewhat comforting that I've heard is, remember David O. McKay's son one time has said publicly, he says, "I think the reason that my dad was taken when he was is because he would not have changed the policy on blacks in the priesthood." And it's kind of a strange thing the way our church leadership works as far as revelation goes. But I know that when a big doctrinal question comes up like this, I remember reading about, and some of you are old enough to remember that the church actually put a policy out about evolution, and probably right around when I was born, about 1970. And when they put that together, that took months of meeting of where the whole 12 met at the top of the Salt Lake Temple, and they hashed it out. And Hugh B. Brown didn't get his way. he thought that evolution was just the way that God created the world, and he lost that vote. And they ended up coming out with a policy that said that, or almost a doctrinal statement that said we don't buy evolution. I don't know if it would come out the same way today if we needed another statement to be released on that. And I think that sometimes we just have to wait for, I believe that there is not complete alignment. I think they show a completely aligned face when they release a statement. But at the same time, I don't believe that there's complete agreement among the leadership of our church on this right now. And strangely, the way our church leadership works is that sometimes turnover makes some big changes. And I remember, you remember the talk that Elder Rasband gave at BYU, if you read that. It was very inclusive a year ago. And Elder Rasband is a very conservative guy. I was a little worried when he came in, but at the same time, I wonder if we give it a few years, as long as those of us who are attending keep attending and letting people know that we're uncomfortable, that this affects us and it hurts. I think I am hopeful. And I think it sucks to have to go through this as a church. But I think that when we come out the other side, ultimately it'll be better.
I think that if let's say the policy were taken back tomorrow, let's say they just said, okay, oops, we're going to take this back. I think there's still a pretty intense challenge for LGBT people in the church. There are some doctrinal issues that make things very difficult for LGBT people. And so I think in a way, the policy is driving us to talk about something that we've been comfortable with for too long, maybe. So I don't know if that's, and maybe that's some, of what you're trying to express.
I'm a guy that believes that the proof is in the pudding. And the veracity of this policy is going to be played out by the individual bishops and stake presidents across the church. And so I'm a wait and see. We have a policy that's in paper. The letter that came from the first presidency a week after it leaked out was much more conciliatory in tone. Our son-in-law is a bishop, and we were talking about it over Christmas, and he said, I have two conflicting directives, and I know that I'm going to lean on the side of where people's hearts are at, and make sure that I don't damage families. So we have a policy that's in black and white on paper that is extremely ambiguous. For those of us who are in mixed orientation marriages or ex-spouses from mixed orientation marriages with children, there was an immediate concern about what happens to our kids. And that letter that came a week later clarifying the policy that we were talking about children from same-sex couples came forward, but they didn't change the wording of the policy. They didn't change the ambiguity of the policy. So policy really is open to quite a bit of interpretation. And like I said before, I'm going to wait and see. We'll all be aware of horror stories that may come out from different areas of the church. And we'll also be aware of, I don't know, can we call them success stories, but where families remain intact and active in the church.
So I have a question, another question. This question is, what can people do that will help? Yeah.
I think I would challenge a little bit is, I think that, I keep saying this, but there's an emotional health problem that we have going on here. That it's great that if we can help and help other people be kind to us, but there is also a sense of abuse that's happening to all of us in the church setting. It's one thing that even if you have an accepting ward where you can come and be accepted, that you having Salt Lake tell you that you're apostate or you're not welcome. And I think that the first step is taking care of your emotional health. Like, if you can't give, don't give. Like, if you can't be there, don't be there. Like, I think that's the first step. I think we keep talking about, like, well, if we're all there, we can change things. But honestly, we're losing enough people that, like, stop going. Like, if you can't be there, stop going, please. Because it's not a safe place for most of us. Like, and I think that's the reality, is that we're going into an environment and we know it's not safe. And if you don't have the reserves, don't go. And if you do have the reserves, go there and take it for the team.
Thank you. Thank you for saying that. I have heard so many positive stories about how wonderfully supportive wards have been. I've heard some negative stories, but it seems to me like the majority of stories that I've heard have been, you know, members of the ward. This was my ward. People came up to me, they hugged me, they verbally expressed their love and support. There was this guy, like this gentleman in his 60s who is an investigator. He had just started taking the missionary discussions. I don't even know how he knew who I was, but he came up to me and said, "Are you John Gustav Rathall?" And I said, "Yeah." And he said, "I'm investigating the church, and I want you to know that what I think is happening is terrible." So I just had all of these people, you know, sort of loving me and supporting me. My bishop was really wonderful, and I've heard a lot of similar stories, but what you say is true, that there's still this fundamental pain that a lot of us are experiencing that doesn't get fixed by that. I don't know what to do with that, but just to put it out there. So that's, yeah, I don't know what to say about it other than that. But it helps to have people hug you and tell you they love you, but it doesn't necessarily fix it. Put cookies on your porch. One of their members of their ward brought them cookies.
That's so Mormon.
Yeah.
Sorry, you're apostate.
If that could be a thing, that we do love bombs for apostates.
Yeah, Judy.
It is a bit of a minefield going to church. It really is. Beyond the bishop roulette, there's the day-to-day things that happen in the meetings, and as giving a hug can be a positive thing, the negative things that people can avoid are making anti-LGBT comments. I've been in a number of situations where, you know, the lesson is talking about chastity, and, you know, the poor sister on the other side of me is having an affair with the Bishop's son, or I don't know. But I mean, there's people in there that are sinning, but what they're doing is they're pointing the finger at, oh, the gays, they're causing, or I was in a discussion where they were talking about, how bad things were in the world, and, 4 comments into it, yeah, because look at all the gay people, And I think it's a 2-part thing. One, for the people who are going to listen to this thing, don't say hurtful things. Just don't say hurtful things. Because if Sister Smith comes up and gives me a hug, my heart is open. And if Sister Jones raises her hand and says something hurtful, my heart is really, really open to receive that knife. And it's just not, it makes it really hard to come. And my comment to the thing about the, then that discussion went to, oh, we all have our crosses to bear, and, their trial is being gay. And I raised my hand and I said, being gay is not a trial. Being treated the way that we get treated is the trial.
Yeah.
So I want to speak a little more to what Celeste brought up. I don't think I said this in my introduction. I'm also a marriage and family therapist, and I've been specializing in trauma, and that has a lot of application to what a lot of people have voiced and are experiencing. I think more often we think about trauma in terms of sexual, physical assault, even going through some sort of natural disaster or war or famine, where our lives, literally feel jeopardized. And yet we, especially as Mormons, we understand that we live on a very spiritual plane in the way that we think about the world, and the way that we think about our membership in terms of spiritual life. And that is the way we've often been taught to think about our connection to the divine and our willingness to keep certain commandments or not. And so this message where LGBT people who choose to, enter into a same-sex marriage and then are singled out as apostates, whereas, as has been pointed out and, or inferred in many different comments, that is very unique to same-sex couples at this point. That is not a label that we are handing out very readily in this community. And so that sense of feeling singled out, that sense of being cut off, that sense of being unwanted is very real, and it has very real ramifications for relationships within the church family, how our family members respond to people, how people in positions of authority, in particular parents, leaders, where we have placed so much trust and are often literally assigned as stewards acting in the name of God. And so again, the impact potential of what I'm calling, or trying to bring awareness about trauma is extremely real. And one of the ways that I think about that topic is if you think about, let's say, a natural disaster, like a fire, destroys 5 houses on the same block. When you really stop and think about that experience for those 5 different households, in reality it's probably going to play out very different depending on what kind of resources each of those individuals have, right? One of them may have fire insurances where the other one didn't. One of them may have a really strong support network with a church or with family members close by so they have a place to go, and some people don't. Some people may have lost somebody in the fire, some didn't. Some may have all kinds of financial resources to ride out that wave, and some don't. And so hopefully that can at least even begin to shape how we're thinking about the nuance of how people are experiencing trauma in this regard. And I guess really wanting, when there are those voices who are really feeling like I am very much in pain and wanting to respond very directly to that and honoring that, and it's very real. And I think, at least as a therapist, something that I know is one of the most important ways that people begin to come out of that sense of trauma is that there's somebody there to listen as they start to talk and try to figure out what now. And so the role of, if you are not going through trauma around this, or even if you are, we can listen to each other. But that giving people a voice, people who are experiencing trauma right now, continue to talk. Even though there are people who are telling you that they don't want to hear what you have to say, they don't want to hear that you are in pain, find the people who will. That is like the foundation of moving forward. And I could just ramble on, but I want to go to Amanda because she had her hand up, and I was like,
I don't know how much time. I just want to, I guess, reiterate that like I work in foster care, and we see kids come in who have 47 broken bones and fractured skulls and this horrific, awful physical abuse, and those kids heal, and it's the children who have been neglected, who have not been able to attach properly, who have not been loved, that have lifelong damage that we can't really fix, you know, and this is neglect, you know, it is spiritual neglect, and it's something that when people say like, well, why don't you just leave, or why don't you just do this, that like, it's really important that we validate that and that we say, this is real and this is traumatic and people can heal from all sorts of things, but neglect is something that lasts forever.
This is trauma, and I've observed it, and it's very clear that LGBT people right now are suffering trauma as a result of this, whatever else you want to say. Entire families are experiencing trauma. Actually, some of the worst trauma that I've seen has been for immediate family members of LGBT folks who sometimes are hurting more than their LGBT family members. Yeah.
My biggest concern that I see, I have 5 children, 3 are married. I see the split that my church that I have loved so much has split my family. And I think, I'm not trying to hurt anybody who disagrees with me, this is just my feelings. I hate to say that. I think the church does a lot of damage for my son, for the gay kids, because we're giving him all those hopes. But in reality, we have no power. We can speak all we want, and I enjoy, I think it's wonderful we do that, but we don't have the power. So we're promising those kids that, you know what, the church is going to get better at that. But really, is it really? So for me, I had to be true to my son, and when Jordan says, I feel there's not a place for me, and he's always wanted, he's loved the gospel, he loves the church, and he comes to you so sad, and I had to come to him and be honest, you're right, go away, walk away from the church, there is not a place for you right now, there's not. And I think we can't be lying to our kids. I think there's a place for you to always have your relationship with Heavenly Father. And, you know, he comes with me on Mother's Day, God, but I see the loneliness and the pain he feels. And I don't like seeing my son feeling so distant from everybody because nobody knows what to do with my son. Like he carries some disease or something. It doesn't beg us. I think in California it's amazing, but in Vegas it sucks. It sucks.
Not all of California is amazing.
Well, it's California.
Thank you, Pilar. I can always count on you for passion and
yes.
fierce love. Fierce love.
Yeah. I just want to back up what you're saying, Pilar, and say that I think when we talk about trauma, like Amanda was saying, you know, neglect, that's what we don't recover from. But being gaslit, like being told that you're not feeling what you're feeling, and being told that it's safe when it's not safe, and when you're being told that this is what the love of Christ feels like, but it can't be, that's where the real damage comes in. And so the thing we can do is just hold that line and refuse to call good evil and evil good.
I'll get you in just a second, but Bishop Warnock, if you could.
those who attended the previous workshop with me know that I step in it a whole bunch because I'm new. I'm new to this. I'm a relatively new bishop. I've experienced some things, but I wanted to, the sister from Seattle here, some of the things she said, all of the things she said resonated with me very, very well. First of all, it was, you got to start wherever you're at. Start where you feel love. Start where you feel good. Don't go where it makes you mad. Don't go where you feel like you want to hit people. Start where you're at. And for those who have the reserves, she said, take one for the team. One thing that you can do if you feel like you've got those reserves, you can take one for the team, is to talk with the bishop. I had my daughter's on a mission in Las Vegas, so I hope there's something good in Las Vegas.
She is? I'll find her.
She's in Henderson, Black Mountain.
Okay.
But she was the one who told me about it. She says, several people have talked to me about the policy change, and I had gotten an email earlier that week about the policy change. I hadn't read the email yet, so I didn't know anything. She told me about it because people were willing to open up with her, and she said she had multiple good conversations with people about the policy. I then read the policy, and I have 2 members of our ward who have shared with me that they're gay, and we've had multiple conversations. They both came to talk to me about their feelings about the policy. My feelings about the policy, I didn't have any. I was just starting. I just read it. To me, it's I don't know, it's inconsistent. That's the policy towards families of plural marriage families. It's the same policy. Oh, it seems consistent to me. I'm still learning. I don't know what it feels to them. But those 2 had the reserve to come talk to me about it. And we had a great back and forth. And I think I learned way more than they did, but they also had some head nodding experiences. So I wanted to say thank you to the sister from Seattle. I think that's exactly right. Some have to take it for the team. And the bishop, believe it or not, is not only the one, not that you can expect that they'll understand, but there's a good chance they might. They've talked to more people about private things in the ward and know about the suffering that a lot of families suffer in silence. So they may very well be very warm and understanding. If they're not immediately, for whatever reasons, they can become more warm and understanding by having the dialogue. I personally have experienced that, and so I wanted to share that and thank you, Mrs. Thank you, Seattle. Thank you. Who has a name, but I apologize for that. Celeste.
Only Sister Seattle.
We're just up there for our anniversary, and I love that.
My background is in community organizing and like grassroots organizing, and it's so unusual for me to think in terms of looking to leadership, because everything in grassroots organizing is about connecting with each other, and that like you build up not for asking power to cede to you. I think it's super important to talk to people in leadership. I think it's super important to talk to your Relief Society president, your bishop, your stake president, to tell them who you are. But like when Pilar said, it's true, we have no power, you know, and tell them that truth. Obviously, I feel a ton of conflict about this, but I feel like is there not power, though, in saying we don't have institutional power? And that's accurate, and you should say it, because you shouldn't mislead people, because that's painful and abusive. But you do have personal power. And, you know, whatever that is, however that's defined, if it's your personal relationship with the divine, if it's your personal relationship, you know, with your family, whatever that is, to say, yes, institutional power is important, but if we were just relying on that, we go nowhere. It can't happen if that's what we're looking to.
revelation in the church has come from the bottom up at least 3 times that I know of. Word of Wisdom with Emma. She was the one that said, why don't you go ask about this? Right? There's a 1983 temple recommended question about oral sex. That was changed because they rolled it out and they had huge backlash. And then the endowment in 1989. That was changed because a whole lot of bishops and stake presidents' wives were not comfortable with going to the temple at that point.
I know you've been wanting to speak for quite a while.
There's something I wanted to bring up a while back as we were talking about kind of things that we can do, things we can help. I've sometimes seen, I feel like I've seen on Facebook a fair amount of people who sort of tend to fall more on the conservative side of things, posting certain things written by gay people who didn't really have a problem with policy. And I just wanted to bring this up to point out that just because one person doesn't hurt deeply about something doesn't make it not legitimate for other people to, and that we need to be really careful not to hold up one person as this is how everybody should be feeling and should be responding to this. That can be like really hurtful.
Yeah, that's a very good point. We're almost at the end of our time. I think there was one brother over here who wanted to say something.
I just wanted to say on the power, to me, what I try and remember is the church is the members. The church isn't guys sitting in Salt Lake. And the way that we'll take that power is by opening hearts and minds. The more people we talk to, there will be a tipping point when the bulk of the membership, especially the younger membership, says, we're not going to put up with this anymore. And at that point, Salt Lake will have a choice to become a small fundamentalist church or to say, we're inclusive and we accept people. Because a church without members doesn't exist anymore. If they start losing their members, so if we can speak up and open hearts and minds, and I know for some people that's too painful to do, and I totally get that, but for those who can do it, do it. Let people see, there's nothing wrong with anybody here. We're beautiful people.
Well, thank you. I feel like we could probably go another hour. How are you feeling? There's a lot of energy in this room. I hope the conversations continue. If there were people who said interesting things during the session and you want to follow up with, I hope you do. We really appreciate everyone participating. Ron, do you have anything you want to?
Okay, so I'm going to teach you a little English lesson here. When I was first married, or before we first got married, I was told, that before we got married, that I laid back and think of England and whatever I do. And little did I know. The reason I'm sharing that point is primarily, I don't know, I understand, I feel, I empathize with the trauma and the sadness and the extent of pain that is within our community. I understand that. But we also, we have a belief in God. We need to put our shoulders back. We need to be strong. We need to be able to go forward. For those of us that can still go to church, go to church. Go to church. If you can't do anything else other than lift up a box when someone's moving, lift up that box. Just do something to serve and to help one another. And as people see us as functioning and happy and supportive people and that love everybody, then we will win. We will win. But it's up to us. And tell everybody that you know, bring in as many allies. We need allies. I'm an ally. We need allies because we're wonderful. But we need the LGBT. And if you know that there's people that are hiding in the closet, you can't pull them out, but encourage them to come. We need them to. We need everyone because this is the group that's going to make the difference.
Thank you, everybody, for coming in. See you around. We'll be here. You can stay.
We want tipping over backwards.
Right. So, and the other thing that I would ask is if you are here for this session, please come forward.
Why?
Yeah.
We want to be chatty with you.
Come down here to at least the second row. The first row, if you're on the first row, the back of your head is going to maybe appear on camera. If you're on the second row, you're safe.
Mary Brown, Southern Council, and State President, just,
So come on in. All right, so this is, can somebody like close the doors there? So that, because there's kind of a lot of, all right, so this is you and the church navigating a way forward post-policy change. What this means to you, your family, and your ward. I think Randall, I don't know if he mentioned this last night in the sort of fireside-y kind of meeting that we had last night, but the structure of this conference actually kind of follows a structure that was developed in our Latin American conferences, where we had sort of 4 areas of focus. We talk about you, your relationship with yourself, you and God, you and your family, and then you and the church. And we had those sort of 4 areas that we explored. And we wanted to use that structure here at this conference, and we planned since the policy came around. And we were sort of like, we can't talk about you and the church without addressing the elephant that has now entered the room. Took a big turn on the living room floor. Right. Thanks for that analogy, Christian.
I aimed at Lee.
Okay. So we really felt that this was, the topic is still about us and the church and our relationship with the church, but really the focus has been on particularly the impact of this new policy on our relationship with the church. And we've had 2 very different sessions. And the first session, half of the people in the room were in tears. And it was, for me, it was really hard emotionally. The second session, people were not quite that vulnerable, but it was still difficult. There was still some very, I think some different views on this that kind of put people